I'm Heather from here booktubes, and today is bully romance recommendations, and I did do this video last year, so I will have it linked. This is, of course, completely different books. So bully romances for me basically take place in a school setting / new adult setting. And all of these actually do take place in a school setting, so it's different from hate to love, enemies to lovers, and I don't really put adult aged characters in this recommendation, if it makes sense. I would say my oldest characters are probably going to be like in their 20s, though I think there's Faye in here and they might be very old. But yeah, these all take place at a school setting, and I personally don't really love for the bullying to be super terrible, and I have a wide range of what the bullying content is. So I'm going to start out with my lightest, then we have a couple that are a little bit heavier, and then we veer off a little bit. It doesn't matter. But yeah, so these are my recommendations. Number 1, A Lesson in Blackmail by Robichaux. Listen, I adore this book. If you are familiar with my channel, you've heard me talk about it probably. This one is very light on the bullying. Very, very light. Basically, he likes to intimidate her a little bit at the beginning. He's dealing with a lot of things that he doesn't understand. Basically, he doesn't know that BDSM exists and has dominant urges and thinks that they are bad and doesn't know how to deal with them, so he just suppresses them. He's the 18-year-old alpha heir to the school where his family founded it and funded it and all the things, and she is the 22-year-old school librarian who is very submissive. And yeah, so he like messes with her a little bit at the beginning. Nothing bad at all. I swear it's like so mild. And then he also has OCD, like legitimate OCD. And he can get obsessive tendencies and urges and things like this. So one Friday night, he's just like, what is she doing? I need to know what she's doing. So he goes to her house and he sees her leaving. So he follows her, and she is going to a BDSM club, and she's there early, so the bouncer's not at the door. So he follows her in, sees what she's doing, tells her to come back to her house with him. And she is just like, you know, if he exposes that I'm part of this club, then his family can blackball me and I'll never have a job again, and this is my dream job. So she is very intimidated, even though he's taking advantage of that, but is not purposely trying to make her afraid or anything. And it's very interesting because it's him learning how to be a BDSM dominant, and she is an experienced submissive. And I love it so much. I love it so much. You don't even know. So they're like my favorite. I've reread this book already, and I will probably reread it again. I just am a huge fan of it. She's not a doormat. He's not super mean. She's definitely not fiery. She is submissive in all aspects of her life rather than just in the bedroom. And I just really enjoyed their dynamics and the way that the story was told. Okay, this is where we get heavy. I have 2 different books. So if you want to skip these next 2 books, you can. But I have 2 different books where the bullying content is that the hero sexually assaults the heroine on page at the beginning of the book, and the story is them having a relationship after that, and like how can that be and what does that look like. The first one is Untouchable by Sam Mariano. This one, I'm going to tell you what the content is, so if you do not want to know, maybe skip. But I mean, I know that I would not have been able to enjoy these books at all if I didn't know what I was getting into and expecting this content to be on page. So in Untouchable, he's kind of like a sociopath, but not really, and he forces her to give him a blowjob in the classroom of the school in front of a couple of his friends, and basically he tells her if she doesn't do it, then he'll rape her. And so it's a lot. It's a lot. It is not my favorite. The next book is I enjoyed more, but it is a very interesting look at kind of the psychology of these 2 characters. I just found it interesting. I only gave it 3 stars, so they didn't completely win me over. And part of that was, even as their relationship progressed and he would do things to make her happy, at the same time he would do things that she was not okay with. He would manipulate her in order to get his way, and he didn't care if it was a problem for her, right? He didn't care kind of what the effect was on her, as long as he got her. Does that make sense? So in that way, she never quite won me over with them as a couple. But it was well written, it was interesting, and there's that. The next one is Truly by Carmel Rhodes. This is a similar situation to Untouchable, but I did enjoy this one better. So he sexually assaults her at a party and tells her that if she tells anyone that he will kill her, and he is rich and all that. He is also intoxicated. Not okay. We're not saying that that's okay. We're not saying that. Nobody's saying that, actually, because it very much is not. But it is a different story from the one I just talked about. And it's just him kind of forcing himself into her life afterwards, and their chemistry, and can they be okay? I thought that it was pulled off pretty well. I think I gave this book 5 stars. And I actually enjoyed this book while still being really uncomfortable. Really uncomfortable. So yeah, if that is something that you think sounds like an interesting story, I actually would recommend Truly over Untouchable. But if that's not something that you want to read, the line is drawn, I understand. Next one is Taunter, which is Rebels at Sterling Prep #1 by Caitlyn. This one, he is from the wrong side of the tracks, and his rich uncle rescues him and his brother, or him and his 2 brothers, something like that. And he's like 18, and he is not okay. And his uncle's girlfriend has a daughter, and he sees her relationship with his uncle, like how proud his uncle is of her and stuff, and he's like, okay, I'm going to destroy her to destroy my uncle. And of course he falls for her, and this is a duet, so at the end of the first book, things happen, right? He ruins everything, and that's the cliffhanger that the book ends on. And then the second book is, can she forgive him? Can they get back together? All those things. I would say content warning for revenge porn. I don't know if that's a spoiler, but I'm just gonna include it. This one, he's a little bit harassing her, but for the most part, he's like really nice to her, but is planning on using her, if I remember correctly. And then things go horribly wrong. I liked the first book more than the second book, but I did enjoy the duet. I liked them. Lastly, At Midnight Fae, which is by Lexi C. Foss. This is the first book in a reverse harem supernatural academy series, and they are all fae, but the like dark type of fae, they almost have vampire abilities, and it is against their laws to mate an elemental fae, to bite them, to drink their blood, etc. And he forces the bite on her, which is kind of, it's equated to rape, and he like uses magic, and she's like saying no, and he does it anyways, right? And he bites her, and this forces a chain of events where she's viewed as an abomination, and she has to go to the school. It's a bit confusing because the synopsis like does reveals that don't happen in this first book. So that's a bit odd, but it's the guy that bit her who is like one Dark King councilman's son, and then the one that's actually ruling is enemies, and it's his son and her, and then the guard slash teacher that he has a relationship with and her. The first book ends on a cliffhanger. And they are mean to her. I'm just like, what is your problem? But they're also trying to protect her at the same time. And so it's an interesting, they really don't want anybody to harm her, but they're also not nice to her. It's interesting. I plan on continuing the series. I don't know what happens. I just read the first book recently, but it is definitely the supernatural academy setting that I have liked the best. I have tried a bunch and never end up liking them, but this one I did really like, and I do already enjoy this author, so that could be part of it. There's a lot of bullying happening in this one, and a lot of rules that she doesn't understand because she's an elemental fae and she's been dragged into like the dark fae world, and just a lot of stuff is happening, and I am looking forward to continuing the series. So that's it. Those were some bully romance recommendations. I feel like these ones were a bit heavy, except for the first book. First book, it's the light one. If you want light, read that one. The other ones were a bit heavy, and they all do pretty terrible things. Is this something that you enjoy reading? I know that it is a go-to for some people and an absolutely no for a lot of other people. I assume if you're watching this, you probably enjoy it. When I'm in the mood for it, it's just good stuff. I don't know what to tell you except that here's 5 recommendations for it. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.